Your Royal Highness, I want to kick off by just kind of asking you to give us, in your mind, the greatest challenge that we're going to face in the short term when it comes to AI. Because at the end of the day, this is a service that people are using right now, as we know, mostly for fun, but this is going to become a part of our everyday lives in a way perhaps that most people don't realize.
Well, I think it's such an honor for me to be here as well, talking about literally my favorite subject. I'm a technology optimist because I really do believe that with better data, we really can make some of the world's greatest decisions. But you're totally right. What are some of the things in the short term that we all should be thinking about to make sure that we are kind of a little bit more in control and can really feel like this sector is actually working for us, rather than feel like we're kind of marching towards, a 2001 Space Odyssey without that authenticity that that I think as consumers, individuals, and kind of thoughtful individuals need to think about. So one of the ways that I look at this is that the whole sector really needs to do a fantastic job at bringing people into the conversation. I think one of the reasons why I've been in Abu Dhabi and being a part of this conversation has been about looking at the Enact Majlis that His Excellency Dr. Sultan put together to think about this moment of sort of short-term need married to kind of the long-term potential and what that means for climate change and sustainability, and ask that opportunity to ask the best questions. So for me, what I learned and what I am learning through this sector is the fact that we're still at the very earliest stages. And if we all kind of find and focus on that moment of collaboration, we really can move the needle to get to this technology to where it really needs to go. But we need to have everyone's voice at the table. We need to have the energy sector, we need to have the AI companies, we need to have the individuals, but most importantly, we also need the consumers as well to come along on that journey with us, to really make to really move the needle, to make sure that everyone's getting what they need out of this. When I look at some of the opportunities in AI, I liken it sort of as it's a very big, powerful tool, but it's a solution looking for a problem. So we can actually reimagine the entire sort of moment, as it were, if we're prepared to kind of lean in, ask better questions. Sometimes you have to ask permission to clear up a misunderstanding. And this is one of the reasons why, moments like this and prepared to sort of create spaces for collaboration can make a big difference.
What's your greatest concern there? Is it sort of the space between AI, obviously, hopefully a force for good? Is it mirroring us as human beings, our intelligence, or it's going beyond it? Because the question is, we're imperfect. And of course, we would not want a tool to create even more imperfection.
So what keeps me awake at night in terms of is the fact that AI really does need sort of the intelligence that we need to gather really does need to be sort of equal representatives. And so one of the areas that I really want to focus on in this sector is actually promoting really positive leadership for a lot of these companies, including some of the most amazing women in technology. Because when I think about the fact that what's being coded in, what are we learning from, what are the IP materials that we're training on, where is the data coming from, that's the bit that I really want to think about as the most diverse group of mindsets that we can really think about. That's where the force for good can really come in. What I noticed about my career in technology, it was an incredibly open-minded field. It really does come with an invitation to invite a lot of people to the table. But we need to do a little bit better to make sure that we are creating the spaces and the opportunities to invite people to collaborate with some of these tools.
To avoid those potential biases.
Yeah, to avoid bias, but also to lead, to ask questions, to lean in, to think about, where can we apply this best intelligence? And how do we make it beautiful? How do we make it thoughtful? And how can we actually serve humanity? And I think at the moment, we're not doing enough to think about some of the bigger human questions. I'm really inspired by some of the programs that I'm seeing in healthcare and in sustainability, because we know that those are areas that we have vast amounts of data on, and we really can ask fantastic questions. So those are the two sectors that I'm really excited about, to see how we can channel the human good into those questions. In terms of sort of the more sort of the consumer product side and more of the sort of the everyday usage, I think we really haven't seen the best the opportunities in that area to really maximize their full potential as yet. But as the consumer becomes more aware of what their data is doing, as they have more control of it, as they have more excitement to collaborate, and I think we will see a few more kind of fantastic use cases that can really move the needle for human good.
And speaking of the consumer, I mean, to your point, at this point it's quite nascent, and perhaps the consumer doesn't even really understand what their data is and potentially where it's going to be held and how it could be used. It's a Pandora's box.
Yes, and I would really advise, those individuals and the consumers and those, to spend the time to kind of educate themselves as well, because there is such potential here to really move the needle. Even learning about some of the organizations now that are, working with young people, working in education, working in healthcare. That data is fabulous, but again, making sure that you're aware of it, you know what it's doing, and how you can actually, partner with your data as well
to make it work for you.
To make it work for you, and then we can ask really big questions. We can ask of our future what we want.
How quickly do you see that shift happening? Because as Dr. Sultan mentioned yesterday, at the moment, the majority of searches, the majority of ChatGPT, people are entertaining themselves. It's a joke, it's for fun, and that's using up so much energy. So there's a social responsibility that comes with the development of AI. And I think, as to your point, people as yet don't really understand that connection.
I think the sector is doing, the companies and the individuals that are really excited about it really are fostering fantastic relationships with the end consumers. We've got, working with them on the users and working with them to kind of sort of create as many opportunities as we can. But for me, the best applications I'm seeing are slightly more focused. I thought what Dr. Sultan said as well, of taking large enterprises and working to really ask the most fantastic questions is sort of the secret to this. Yeah. Is where can our sort of extra level of intelligence really move the needle for large change? Yeah. And that's what I'm seeing in energy and healthcare.
It was fascinating in our conversations yesterday with 60 of the biggest folks in energy and in tech talking about AI and how it can be applied to daily life. We're used to saying data centers, but the term I heard yesterday, which was fabulous, for intelligence factories. I thought that was fantastic. And to
Yes.
your point, asking those better questions and taking that societal responsibility. There are going to be questions about where those data centers are going to be located, and that's a security question, that's a geopolitical question. This sort of could quickly snowball into frankly, it's a question of foreign policy. In your mind, how do we keep these conversations on the right path?
Honestly, it takes great leaders, and it takes leadership, and it takes, again, that moment of collaboration. These are fantastic tools. They're tools that can really move the needle, but they need a lot. So how can we foster relationships that can really allow for that collaboration, and you can keep the correct balance of climate, energy, invention, transformation, and innovation at the heart of it. I think leadership is key, and collaborative leadership. So you have to have a growth mindset. Mm-hmm. I think one of the reasons why even the use of sort of the phrase artificial intelligence has I think, done a disservice to the actual intelligence that we're creating. You think about the word artificial. It immediately
doesn't inspire confidence.
It's not inspiring. It's terrifying. But actually, thinking about intelligence and reimagining what intelligence looks like. I also have dyslexia, and thinking about intelligence was something that I grew up at school, and everyone was like, "Oh, you're not smart enough. You're not intelligent. You're not this. You're not that," because I'm not traditionally smart in one way. And for me, technology gave my brain a totally different set of tools to be able to do that. Yeah. And so I kind of look at this sort of sector of intelligence as an opportunity, but we have to do more to invite people into the conversation. We have to be prepared to collaborate. We have to ask better questions, and we have to sort of do more to make sure that more are invited to the conversation.
Yeah. And speaking of that, we were speaking a little bit earlier about the Global South and the role that the Global South will play, not only in AI, but in energy going forward in regards to critical minerals, regards to data centers. In your mind, is this actually perhaps a pathway to bringing the Global South with us in a way perhaps that we haven't done before?
I would like to think so, and I'll tell you why. Because with the role of intelligence and asking better questions, I think that there's much more of a role for everyone to have a stake in the game. So what that means is that no country or no individual will be able to do this alone. It takes ecosystems. It takes thoughtful ecosystems. So how can you design things that allow everyone to have a seat at the table? So where your data centers are, where your energy is coming from, where your actual data is flowing, no one place is going to be able to do this on its own. It really does call for incredible collaboration, and what that means for emerging markets, what that means for young people, to can think about that hope, to think about where they live in terms of being a global citizen and being a contributor. Technology and the tools that technology can give us can really sort of change the game in terms of where you live, how you think, and where you can collaborate.
Yeah.
So for me, I look at this world as I'm hopefully an internal optimist. Geopolitics currently, we need to do a bit more to foster these relationships of kindness and collaboration. But I think where I see technology really acting as a tool so that we can catch more people with the imagination to create.
Do you think that AI has the power to resolve conflict, to end wars?
I think we have to do a little bit more to collaborate if we're really going to see the potential of these tools to bring to bear some of the questions the planet needs us to answer. We need better data in terms of what our planet is asking us to do. The legacy of COP28 has really taught me that no one should be left behind, no matter what sector you're in, and no matter what industry you find yourself faced with. You have to ask. Now is the time to ask better questions, and how can better intelligence, better data strengthen the human capabilities for kindness, and how can we actually do more to invest in that kindness and invest in each other, and how can better data play a role in that?
Tell me this, we've been talking so much obviously about the potential for the UAE in this part of the world with regards to AI, simply because in this part of the world, obviously with oil and gas and other fossil fuels, we can fuel that technology. They can do the same thing in the United States. It's a different story for Europe. It's a different story in the UK. In the United Kingdom, energy prices are 4 times higher than in the United States. In your mind, does the UK have the potential to be left behind simply because they don't have the same resources?
The wonderful thing that we have in the UK is incredible talent. And we have incredible opportunities with great talent, great individuals. And talent and thoughtful talent really plays a huge part in this as well. So how can we invest in that talent? What are we doing in order to really move the needle to make sure that there is hope in this sector as well? That's another huge aspect.
Do you feel like there is hope right now?
I'd like to think so. I think I'm making it my whole life's mission to think about like how hope and technology can kind of work in a collaboration mindset. So I'm probably very passionate about creating hope and working on a few projects across the board to think about what that hope really means. Talent, skills, women in leadership, these are just some of the ways that I think that we can sort of talk about hope that really can foster fantastic opportunities for this technology to kind of work in line with some of the things that are really needed.
Your Royal Highness, it's wonderful to have you here at ADIPEC 2024.
Thank you
so much for joining me.
Thank you.